Now, I don't really talk hockey on this channel, but I feel like I need to talk about the Blackhawks because they are in just quite possibly one of the worst situations for a franchise to be in. And that is right on the verge of a very, very long term rebuild. And the Hawks went from one of the most prestigious franchises in all of hockey and all of sports for that matter to where they're at now, which is quite possibly one of the worst franchises in all of sports, knowing what we know now about this team and its past. Now, for anybody who followed the Blackhawks this season, you know that this was a really, really bad year to be a Blackhawks fan. First of all, you have the kind of elephant in the room with the Kyle Beach scandal back in November, which kind of ruins the 2010 Stanley Cup championship team. Then you have the team just overall being terrible. They end up finishing the season 28, 42, and 12, which was nearly one of the worst records in all of hockey. And they have very little future to build around as they sort of bought in last year's offseason, trading for Seth Jones, giving up most of their prospects in order to get him, and kind of fell short. Now they find themselves in a horrible situation with a very bleak future. And it didn't always used to be like this. Looking at the 2020 season, that was actually a really good year for the Blackhawks because they did finish below 500, but they had a really good season. Though they committed to a rebuild in the offseason, which was, I think, a move a lot of Hawks fans could agree on. The Hawks needed a rebuild. And though they had guys like Brendan Hagel, Philip Kurashev, Pius Suter, Kevin Lankinen, all break out in big time ways and help them to compete for a top spot in that division. Towards the end of the year, sort of fell off, but it was a really good 2020 season. And then you look at the 2021 offseason, that's where the decline happens as you get Seth Jones, you give up Boquist, you give up your first round pick, you give up another first round pick, and then you get Tyler Johnson, get Marc Andre Fleury, and just like that, your rebuild is over and you're trying to compete again, and it just doesn't work out in any way. Now, looking at the current state of this team, there's absolutely no way they're going to go into next season with a competing mindset. They are going to turn towards a rebuild, which I think is the best case scenario for this entire team. It's going to suck to see most likely Patrick Kane traded, most likely Alex DeBrincat traded, maybe some guys like Connor Murphy. It's going to suck to see those guys traded, but at the same time, they need to enter a full rebuild because their prospect pool is very below average for a team that's this bad. Their prospect pool is not good. And a lot of their younger prospects are still very, like I said, very young. And we saw, some of them play in the NHL last season, made very little impact. Lucas Reichel in particular, still very young, only 20 years, or actually only 19 years old. And made very little impact at the NHL level. He'll most likely need some more time. Then we saw some other guys like Alex Vlasic, Alec Regula. No, none of them really made a big impact at the NHL level. So it's very interesting to see where this team is going to take their rebuild in the next couple seasons. But this is a necessity. A rebuild, complete overhaul of this team is an absolute necessity because we enjoyed those 3 cups. But at the same time, this franchise has been floating in and out of a competing and non-competing cycle for the last couple seasons, and that's probably the worst situation to be in as a fan of a sports team where a team isn't really competing, but they aren't really good either, but they're not bad enough to get top draft picks. They're just kind of there. And that's a horrible situation to be in. So for the Hawks, I do like that Kyle Davidson has taken on a rebuilding approach. They also hired Luke Richardson from the Montreal Canadiens to become the new head coach, and he has so far gotten very good reviews from a lot of the hockey community. So I do like that move as well. But it's going to be a very interesting season for the Chicago Blackhawks, to say the least.